60 lost more than $11 million to scammers. The financial losses are actually believed to be much higher because many older Americans never report it because they feel ashamed or embarrassed. Well, tonight, we hear about the scams and the fallout from a woman who never told anyone what was happening.
Imagine discovering that your elderly mother has been secretly draining her bank account, selling her life insurance, and borrowing from everyone she knows, all because a stranger on the phone convinced her she was about to become a millionaire.
I was flying high with all the things I could do. I truly believed that this was going to be mine.
This is the devastating reality of one of the most predatory scams operating today. And what I'm about to share could save someone you care about from losing everything. If you find value in stories that expose these criminals and protect our communities, subscribe to this channel now, because staying informed is your first line of defense against predators who target our most vulnerable loved ones. Let me tell you about Joan, a woman who summed up her experience with words that still haunt me. I was flying high with all of the things I could do. I truly believed that this was going to be mine. Those words capture something profound about how these scams work, because they don't just steal money, they steal hope and dreams before ripping them away, leaving victims emotionally devastated and financially ruined. What we're dealing with here is a disturbing pattern that plays out thousands of times every year across America. According to FBI data from Massachusetts alone, over 1,200 people above the age of 60 lost more than $11 million to scammers in a single year. And investigators believe the actual number is significantly higher because many older Americans feel too ashamed or embarrassed to report what happened to them, which means for every case we hear about, there could be several more suffering in silence. Joan's nightmare began with a single phone call, the kind that most of us would dismiss immediately, but that caught her at just the right moment, with just the right words. She was told she had won $2.5 million in a lottery, and all she needed to do was pay some fees, lawyer costs, and taxes. And then this life-changing fortune would be hers. Now I want you to understand something important here, because it's easy to sit back and think you would never fall for something like this. But Joan isn't unintelligent. And she isn't careless. She's simply human. And these criminals are professionals who know exactly which psychological buttons to push. The scammer who called Joan wasn't some amateur reading from a script in a monotone voice. He was smooth and sophisticated and terrifyingly well prepared. Joan herself described it by saying, "I believed him because he was so believable." And she repeated those words because what struck her was how much this person seemed to know about her life.
Late for school many times because I would run down to get it out really early because all I had to do was send him $150 and it would get this thing rolling. I believed him because he was so believable. In the name of all the restaurants in the area, he knew all the streets. He knew everything about my home.
He knew the names of restaurants in her area. He knew the streets in her neighborhood. He knew details about her home, and this level of personal information made him seem legitimate because how could a stranger from thousands of miles away know so much unless he was telling the truth? This is what investigators call a Jamaican lottery scam, a sophisticated criminal operation that has evolved into a massive enterprise, targeting American seniors from call centers in Jamaica, and these aren't lone wolves working from their bedrooms. These are organized transnational criminal networks that have become frighteningly efficient at identifying and exploiting vulnerable people. Mike Kroll, the assistant special agent in charge of the Boston office of Homeland Security Investigations, described the mentality of these criminals in terms that should make your blood run cold when he said they see these people as prey, and once they get money from these victims, it's like blood in the water. Think about that imagery for a moment because it perfectly captures the predatory nature of these operations. The second a victim sends that first payment, their name goes on a list of confirmed targets that gets shared and sold among criminal networks, marking them for repeated exploitation. Joan's ordeal stretched on for 18 agonizing months. And during that time, the calls and payment demands never stopped.
I don't think anyone did this to people. Why would I think someone would do this to another human being?
Each time she was told that this payment would be the final one, that her millions were just one more fee away. And she kept believing because she had already invested so much and because admitting the truth would mean accepting that everything she had given up was gone forever. She described how she would rush to the bank early in the morning to withdraw money because all she had to do was send in another $150, and surely this time it would be real. The financial devastation accumulated slowly at first and then with terrifying speed as Joan found herself unable to pay her mortgage, forced to sell her life insurance policy, and eventually borrowing money from family and friends who had no idea what was really happening. When the reporter asked her directly how much she had lost, Joan's answer was devastating: $27,000.
I lost $27,000. It's a great loss.
Which for someone in her position represented not just savings, but security, independence, and dignity stolen by criminals who saw her as nothing more than a source of income. To put the scope of this problem in perspective, even the 95-year-old former FBI Director William Webster and his wife were targeted by these same Jamaican lottery scammers. And if a man who literally ran the nation's premier law enforcement agency can be targeted, it proves that this has nothing to do with intelligence or awareness and everything to do with sophisticated psychological manipulation. The FBI posted recordings of the calls Webster received, and you can hear how the scammer's tone shifts dramatically, starting with friendly excitement about a $72 million prize and eventually escalating to explicit death threats, with the caller saying, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your husband. I'm going to set your house on fire." This progression from charm to threats is a calculated strategy designed to keep victims compliant through a combination of hope and fear. The Jamaican lottery scam is just one variety in a growing ecosystem of fraud targeting older Americans. The number one scam involves criminals posing as IRS agents, threatening arrest unless immediate payment is made. Others impersonate police officers, utility employees, or tech support workers claiming your computer has been compromised. Perhaps most heartbreaking is the fastest-growing scheme: romance scams, where criminals build emotional relationships with lonely seniors on dating websites before inventing emergencies requiring financial help. Joan's reflection captures why these crimes are so devastating. "I didn't think anyone did this to people. Why would I? Why would I think someone would do this to another human being?" And that inability to imagine such cruelty is exactly what predators exploit. But Joan's story doesn't end in complete despair, because after 18 months of manipulation, she finally admitted to herself that she had been duped, and instead of hiding in shame like so many victims, she took action. Joan wrote a letter to the United States Embassy in Jamaica explaining what had happened. And 4 months later, she received a call from Homeland Security Investigations. Her willingness to come forward led directly to results. 4 people were arrested, 4 criminals who would have continued preying on seniors if Joan hadn't found the courage to speak up. When asked what she would say to scammers, Joan's words were simple and devastating. Please leave people alone. You know we're good people. We've worked hard all our life. Leave the elderly alone. The lesson is that vigilance isn't paranoia, it's protection, and conversations with older adults about scams isn't insulting, it's love. Talk to your parents and grandparents. Let them know they can call you before sending money, and create an environment where they won't feel ashamed. Scammers win when victims stay silent, but lose when we shine light on their tactics and stand together. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay connected to the people you love. Because that connection is the best defense. Until next time, take care of each other